Hello and welcome back to another episode of Veilguard Week and the final episode before launch. I can't believe we've made it. Today is launch day. This video will come out just before the game launches. I'm going to put it out at 3 PM GMT and the game comes out in an hour. So that is crazy. So to all those who are celebrating today, happy Veilguard Day. I can't believe we've made it to launch. I'm so excited. My copy is arriving today, so hopefully I'll be able to get in and stream later. Although I'm not in the house, so I'm navigating that right now, and I may be that I have to do it tomorrow, which would be really devastating. But I'm hoping, all being well, we will have our copy ready to go. So I am very excited, and we've had an action-packed week of discussion. We've talked about the podcast, Vows and Vengeance, my thoughts on it. We've talked about the different media, the books and the comics, and what links they're going to have to Veilguard. Yesterday we talked about the story, and today we're going to be talking about gameplay, which for some people is arguably the most important part of this game, seeing as it is a game, and it's an action or it's an RPG, like action adventure style story. Gameplay is pretty core, and it always has been, especially since 2, I feel like, and going into Inquisition, they tried to overhaul it, and this game is no different. So today we're going to be talking about the differences in gameplay that you can expect from playing Dragon Age Veilguard and what that might look like. Now, I am no expert. I have intentionally avoided a lot of reviews and thoughts, so I'm kind of going in a bit blind as to what it's actually like, besides what we found out, I guess, pre this month, just because I really wanted to not get any spoilers and kind of just experience it all myself. So, without further ado... So firstly, unlike the previous Dragon Age games, Veilguard takes on a faster, more action-based gameplay style. This includes a real-time dodge and block system, which is aided by area effects and attack markers which indicate where a boss is going to aim. So by this, the game's play is going to feel more dynamic. It's going to be more important to pay attention. You're not just going to be button spamming like you were in Origins, and you're not going to just be holding RT like you were in Inquisition, at least if you're a mage. And speaking of classes, there are, again, 3 classes. You have Mage, Warrior, and Rogue, and all of those have different subclasses built in, which we'll talk about later. When you're building your Rook, you have 3 abilities and 1 ultimate, with the primer and detonator system sort of being like Mass Effect, and it's mostly what your companions are going to be helpful for. Likewise, each class has a primary and secondary weapon, as well as their own ranged attacks and dodged actions. So each class is going to feel very different to each other, which is great, because sometimes they can feel a bit samey. Inquisition did classes really well and subclasses, and every subclass felt different and special, and I really liked that, so I'm glad that that's coming back. The core abilities of each class can be enhanced and changed in the skill trees, adding for ability like combos separate from your free skills. This, alongside status effects like Burn, Necrosis, all of those sorts of things, adds a new level of complexity to your skills, and however much you want to go into it, you can combo with your companions, you can set each other up, you can use tactics, you can work out a party composition. We're going to get onto that in a minute. While specializations only give you 1 skill, and ultimate, unlike previous games, the entire new rune system on Solas's dagger makes up for that. So you have a dagger, which I'm going to get in Rook's coffer, and that's like a veil thing. I'm not fully aware on how that works. That's going to be, I'm sure, revealed in the game, and you're going to be able to include runes on that, much like in the crafting and kind of upgrade system of previous games, except done a lot more detailed here. Gear is really going to matter. You can also make gear look like however you want it to look like. You don't have to wait until, so for example, like if you get a really cool like piece of gear, you can change it to your style, so you can have your Rook look like how you want them to look, instead of having to look like what the best gear is, having it all mismatch. And I really love that. That's absolutely one of my favourite things about this update. And ultimately, this game is going to feel very vastly different to other Dragon Age games, as the companions are now immortal, they're reduced to 2 party members, and they can't be controlled, so ultimately are mostly for healing and combo primers. However, the new action gameplay mechanics for Rook should keep you occupied at all times. So they've really centered on making Rook, I guess that kind of goes along with the messaging of the game, is that this is Rook's story and your companions are living, breathing, people, and they're part of this world. So they're making their own choices in combat. They're utilizing their skill set. And I think that's really interesting. The 2 party member composition, I don't want to comment on too much because that could go either way. When you have 3 other companions, like that not only lends itself to kind of character interaction and banter, but it also allows you to really build a party around what you need. So if you're a rogue Rook, you're going to need some warriors in there. You're going to need a mage. So probably the ideal is a rogue, a mage, and 2 warriors. Now you're probably going to be going mage, rogue, warrior, which obviously, if it's like it was in the previous games, warrior is more of a tank. So it's gonna have advantages there. If the AI isn't great, or your companions are making interesting choices and you can't control them, you don't get to tell and dictate how that combat's going to go. Which I think is interesting, and it's going to add a whole new layer. And so going back to the dagger's rune soul slots function as a way to add additional elemental damage. So that was a thing in gear with kind of the different materials you could use to craft things. In Inquisition, you could add kind of different elements to that. This is kind of like that. And you can also add combos onto Rook, as well as create explosive magical detonations after successful combos, really. So they're focusing on that combo route, which is a previously unexplored part of this game, and that sounds pretty exciting. I think it really will make you think about who you're bringing, what works with your Rook, but it's then balancing that with story. Like, what if your 2 favourite companions aren't overly compatible? Do you change your Rook's class to suit that? Do you just roll with it and try and make it, work? I don't know. And this focus comes alongside unique gear abilities that both you and your companions can take advantage of, which seems to be where most build flexibility is going to come from. So all of these sort of unique gear changes, that's going to be what's going to help you build who your Rook's going to be and how they're going to play in combat, as well as your class abilities and the subclasses and things like that. So gear is a huge focus point for this, and that is something that I really welcome, because in the previous Dragon Ages that hasn't always been the case. So I'm very much happier with that. For example, a unique gear piece for Lucanus you can pick up, which increases how many stacks of necrosis both he and Rook can add to enemies. So it reinforces that companions are mostly there to support Rook in this game. So the gear that you find is going to have direct elements not just to them, but also to Rook, and I like that. It really kind of helps you develop those relationships. It's good for roleplay. So overall, I think a lot of positive changes. The gear system being revamped is necessary. Crafting is going to be a lot bigger in this game. That is something I've heard from the reviews, is that crafting is huge, which I think is exciting. I've never been much of a crafter, but if they do it in a meaningful and exciting way, I'm really up for that, and I'm excited about it. Enchanting, all these combos. I think the combos is a really interesting idea, and kind of really working on that cohesion between your party, giving orders, asking them to use abilities. But also, there's going to be really a focus on ability selection too, and that is going to be of equal importance in this. So now we're going to go look at the subclasses in Veilguard and kind of talk about them. There are 9 subclasses that exist, and we'll go through them one by one, and they're each intrinsically linked to the factions of the games. Now, we didn't touch on that in the story, so I will go through them now. You've got the Morn Watch, the Antivan Crows, the Shadow Dragons, the Lords of Fortune, the Veil Jumpers, and the Grey Wardens. So you've got 6 possible factions, and they are all going to kind of have a massive impact in this story, and starting out as one of them is going to unlock extra dialogue and really form your Rook, and you're going to have a backstory that's based on this, and that's really cool. So it's kind of like the Origins, the the origins, where you're kind of picking, like, you're a city elf or a Dalish elf, or you're a mage in the tower, or you're a human noble or a human commoner, all those sorts of things. And I like that, and I think that's a real boost to the game. So we'll start with mage, and that begins with Deathcaller, which uses necromancy magic, and that is related to the Morn Watch, of course. And this, I imagine, can be very similar to its Inquisition counterpart in how it feels, how it plays. They kind of avoid straight resurrection like zombies. They usually do it in another kind of creative way, which I like, so we'll probably see a little bit more of that. And each of these subclasses have a full specced out skill tree, which is really cool, and they're really putting a lot of focus on that. So I think this is going to be a really great system. Then we're going to have Spellblade, which uses melee attacks infused with magic. Again, very similar to Knight Enchanter, but I imagine reworked a little bit, because that could become very strong. And this is related to Antivan Crows, which makes sense. And then finally you have Evoker, which uses elemental, fire, ice and lightning magic, which is faction the Shadow Dragons. Now that makes sense, because Tevinter is where the Shadow Dragons live, and that's where mages train, so kind of having a mage class from there that's focusing on an elemental and kind of universal different traits of magic, nothing too out there, makes sense. And you know, it's interesting that they've gone down because in Dragon Age Inquisition, elemental mage was just, you had a fire mage skill tree, you had an ice mage, and you had a lightning, whereas now that they are all put in this subclass, which I think is a good change. I think elemental wouldn't be my choice of a subclass. Some people really like it, and it layers the option to add more interesting skills to like the main tree. So I'm excited to see how that plays out. Then you've got Rogue, and you've got Duelist, which uses 2 blades for rapid strikes and has the fastest movement of the Rogue specializations, focusing on dodges and parries. And this, of course, you could probably guess, comes from the Crows. Then you have Saboteur, previous games, using traps and tricks to turn the tide of battle. Lords of Fortune makes sense. Varric was also a Saboteur. You're going to be using, I imagine, like grenades, different kind of traps and things like that to get around, as I said. So yeah, that's a lot more tactical, I think, a lot more preparation, and also really kind of ability focused. Then we've got Veil Ranger, which I think is going to be my choice, and it uses a solely range style of combat to hit enemies from afar with a bow, and this is Veil Jumpers. So you're going around Arlathan, and you need to move quick. So yeah, range looks really fun, and Veil Ranger Rogue, I think, is going to be the one I'm going to choose. Now, something I don't know, and I'd love it if someone could answer me in the comments, is whether these are locked behind factions. So am I going to not be able to be a Veil Ranger unless I'm a Veil Jumper, or is it just through your progress with the faction you can unlock that subclass? I'm interested to find out. I'm deliberately kind of not googling anything about the game anymore, just because I know how easy it is to come across spoilers. My friend Ellis has already ran into major spoilers just through kind of googling about Veilguard, so I'm usually not great at keeping myself away, so this time I'm determined to have a bit of surprise and an element of surprise there, and I'm doing the same with Life is Strange too. So yeah, anyway, sidetrack. So then finally we have the warrior subclasses, and we have Champion, which uses a weapon and shield, focusing on tactical defense and tanking hits from enemies. This, of course, is the Grey Warden. Makes sense, very standard. We have Reaper, which again makes a reappearance, and it uses Night Blades to steal health from foes, risking death to gain supernatural abilities. So as well as stealing health from foes, usually it's damaging to you as well, one of those ones. Oh no, it's Reaver that was in previous games, and this is, of course, the Morn Watch, named like Reaper. It'd be weird if it wasn't. And then you have Slayer, which uses two-handed weapons for simple but strong attacks that have increased damage. Lords of Fortune. I think the warrior subclasses feel very uncreative compared to the others. Rogue seems really cool. I'm liking that a lot. The mages, the first two, Deathcaller and Spellblade, are always going to be good, but again, they feel very familiar. And Rogue seems where they've really kind of, with Veil Ranger, gone out and created something brand new. They each kind of have that I guess, but a lot of it's kind of just reworking and improving. And I think that is a great summary for the combat in this game and the gameplay. I think it is going to be a case of it's like the previous Dragon Ages, but it's been reworked, it's been re-looked at, revamped, and made into something really unique and cool. And that is really exciting to me. So yeah, let me know what class and subclass you're thinking of, and why you picking that, and what you think of the other ones, and how you think it's all going to play out. Yeah. So gameplay wise, how do I feel? Well, firstly, I think it's really cool to see them innovating and bringing all these changes. There's always the worry with these sorts of games that they're just going to stick to the tired old formula, and very different to the story. I want this to feel like its own game. Each of the Dragon Ages play differently, and that's a big part of the franchise for me. So I'm excited to see the changes they've made, and it all seems quite positive. The two-party composition is arguably the most controversial part of any of the changes, and you can see why. You know, people love these characters, people want to travel around and mix with as many as possible, and taking away one whole slot, it does a lot to how people play the game, and I think that's a really unique spin on that, and I like that. So I think it's a good thing. I think it could go wrong. I think it could be not a good thing. I think it could not work out. It could be unbalanced, it could be unfun. The lack of control over the companions, that's where I'm kind of like, I don't know about that one. And that's only because I feel like taking that and giving it to AI, or to AI, that seems like a dirty word now, but that's what it is. Giving it to the AI and the coding to make their own decisions never always goes well. Notoriously, game companions that don't have their own, that don't let you control them, are never going to be that much help. I don't know how much damage they're going to be doing, how all of that's going to work. So I am a little bit nervous about that, but I'm also confident that, you know, they're going to do it justice. I do think it's a shame that I'm going to have to make those choices about who I take more. I think it's going to be, it always was a case of I'd have my love interest, and then I'd have my best friend, and then I'd have another slot. And that just allows you to kind of explore the other characters, because I always wanted to have, so in Inquisition, I always had Blackwall with me, and then I would take, usually it was Dorian, sometimes Iron Ball, and then I had that other, it wasn't either of them, it was Vivian, and then my third slot would go to Dorian or Iron Ball. And then the other companions I didn't really use that much, and it's going to kind of, I'm worried it's going to lead, it's either going to go one of two ways with that. You're either going to want to explore more of them and try out different compositions and different combos and have like different companions with you for each mission, or you're going to have your two favourites and stick with that throughout the whole game and miss out on a lot of kind of that side content unless you're forced to take them. I don't know which way I'm going to go yet, because I'm like, I want to try out everyone, and then I'm like, but I don't want to miss what the other guys are saying, you know? Choice-wise, so we've already heard there's 3 endings to the game, like big changes, and your choices matter. The companions, a lot of the context and things like that are going to come through the world, and choices and decisions that you make in-game, and I think that's a good thing. I was very nervous that they weren't going to do something like that, and it's really good to hear that they have, and every review that I've seen in like the blurb is saying that choices do matter, so yay, up from yesterday. So I'm happy about that. So yeah, there's a lot to like here, and I know this is only a rapid fire summary, but I hope you've learned something new, and it's got you kind of hyped. Okay, well, thank you all very much for watching this episode. I hope you did enjoy. If you did, please hit that like button, and comment down below your thoughts on the gameplay, what you want to see, what you're excited for feature-wise, what you're going to miss maybe if you think something's not been carried over. Do you like the 2-party composition? Do you prefer the 3? Lots of questions. Please do start a discussion. I want some more Dragon Age friends to discuss this all with as it comes out. If you've really loved the video and you want to see more, there's going to be a lot more Veilguard content coming. I'm going to do a review, different kind of top 10s, top 5s, meaningful choices, things like that, and focusing on story a lot. And yeah, lots of things are going to come out. So if you've watched it and you want to see that and my perspective, then please hit that subscribe button. And yeah, if you have any feedback, please do put it down below. And if you know any other Dragon Age communities, share the video. Any engagement really helps a small-time YouTuber like me. So thank you very much for interacting, and happy Veilguard Day. I will see you for Veilguard's launch. See you soon.